let's talk about some of the other big news happening in the world. So the Western media, here's a story that the Western media is completely ignoring, and this is perhaps a story that maybe Tucker would have even covered on his show, but you're not going to see it on any of the major cable news channels tonight at all. You'll see it here on our show, but nowhere else probably. The Western media completely ignoring the multiple massive deadly attacks by Ukraine last night and today against civilian targets in Donetsk and Zaporozhye. The shelling was far and wide, guys. Some of the shelling that happened overnight in the early hours of this morning happened for an hour and a half. Consistent shelling in Zaporozhye, hitting residential areas specifically. These were the targets. There's no military significance to hitting these other than terrorism. That's exactly what this is. And last night, these shells raining down on Donetsk, which, of course, Donetsk, if you've been following it, if you have an uneducated person in your midst, someone who doesn't understand what's been going on since 2014, this is what's been going on since 2014. Nonstop genocide, terrorism attacking residential places since 2014. So if someone doesn't understand how this war started, it started here. It started back in 2014, killing multiple civilians. The city has been targeted, according to these reports, by the forces with heavy artillery, rocket fire, according to local officials. Ukrainian forces subjected the city of Donetsk and its immediate vicinity to artillery. Multiple rocket launches fired on Sunday. The attacks killed 3 people. They damaged all sorts of civilian houses and infrastructure, buses. There, again, no military reason for this. The shelling targeted exclusively residential areas of the district. No military targets in sight. Nothing even close. As footage shared online by the mayor shows specifically, the shelling damaged at least 2 residential houses, debris hitting all local art school, shattering windows, damaging its entrance, 9 other residential houses, bus stops, buses damaged also. Who are you hitting when you shell a bus? Can anyone tell me who you're hitting when you hit a bus? Humans.
Non-military.
Non-military. I'm sorry, Russian soldiers are not using buses to get to and from the battlefield. Like, time to go to work, time to get to the battlefield. Let me hop this bus and stop by the mall. It's awful. Ukraine, by the way, using NATO weapons to carry out these attacks. Fired on residential areas using NATO weapons that you're paying for out of your dollars. No military purpose whatsoever. And according to reports, Ukrainian forces used these weapons, including artillery, multiple rocket launches. They blew up homes infrastructure. They used German A2 mines, as well as 155 millimeter shells. By the way, we had Douglas McGregor on the show just a short time ago when we were talking about the shortage of the 155 millimeters. Weren't we, guys? They literally don't have them.
Yeah.
Right? They're pushing for the United States to make more of them and send more of the 155 millimeter shells to Ukraine. So they're using them here. They managed to get their hands on some, and they're using them here to attack civilian targets. So let's keep sending them. They really need these 155 millimeter shells.
All I want to say is it's a good thing they didn't get the other 70% of the weapons that we sent over there. This could have been worse.
Right. No shit. I mean, I know you're being facetious here. Like, all of this stuff goes missing right in the black market, which we're going to talk a little bit later about. But you're right. Like, maybe we should be thankful that it's now in the hands of ISIS, and not in the hands of the Ukrainian military and NATO forces specifically in field. 2 women were killed also in the city of Makivka, located immediately to the north of Donetsk. The city was hit with multiple rocket launches, at least 5 projectiles hitting residential areas. Disturbing footage also. I'm not going to show it to you here on the show because it's awful. Shows victims walking side by side, and then they hear this like incoming projectile, like old women, and they try to take cover. The rockets hit in the middle of the road, and they just like shred the women to pieces. Like, you do not want to see these videos. I watched them, so you don't have to. The Donetsk People's Republic was incorporated into Russia last year, in case you forgot. It is now Russia. This is Russia. So who's calling the shots here? Well, the Washington Post out with an explosive story this morning showing that, the U.S. is directing the Ukrainian military in just about everything they do. In fact, on the anniversary of the war, according to this Washington Post piece, it was crazy. The Ukraine wanted to launch massive attacks inside of Moscow, to which the NATO forces, which are running the show, basically had to talk the Ukrainians off the ledge and like, no, we're not doing that, because that would mean hell on earth would be rained down upon you. We're not doing that. Here's what we are going to do instead. Here's part of our new spring offensive that we're rolling out. So the Washington Post basically saying, we're running the show from top to bottom. We're telling them what to do, where to guide it. So when you see these civilian attacks, when you see these residential zone attacks, guess where they came from? They're using NATO weapons to carry out these attacks. Your tax dollars at work. Ukraine is begging for more weapons this morning because Ukraine now says, in this meeting in Ramstein, Germany over the weekend, they say our mission has changed. It is no longer about survival. It's about victory. So they go to Germany, they meet at Ramstein, they're meeting with NATO officials, and suddenly they do an about face. So instead of you sending your weapons to help us survive in Ukraine, no. Now you're helping us because now it's about victory.
How are we defining victory? We need to take down the whole of Russia?
I guess, yeah. Take down the whole of Russia. Putin's eliminated. They take back all of the Donbass and Crimea, and that's victory. That's victory. So send them weapons. Get them weapons in. That's their new mission. It's not about survival anymore, according to this NBC piece and from officials who were there. Ukrainian officials sought pathway to victory with allies at Ramstein and then switched their thinking on how this is going to go forward. So Ukraine officials said last week they wanted to discuss their pathway to victory as they convene with allies with Ramstein on Friday. According to troops, they're preparing for another counteroffensive that will include a plethora of Western military equipment provided by the United States and other countries in attendance. Putin says, so you want to try and beat us on the battlefield? Okay, go ahead and try. Literally his words. Remember, he says, we haven't even started yet. And you're losing a battalion a day of soldiers. 400 to 600 men are being killed every day. In the past 2 weeks, we've seen thousands. But Putin says, you want to try to beat us on the battlefield? Go ahead and try.
Что нас хотят победить на поле боя. Ну, что здесь скажешь? Пусть попробуют. Мы уже много слышали, что Запад хочет воевать с нами до последнего украинца. Это трагедия для украинского народа. Но, похоже, все к этому и идет. Но все должны знать, что мы-то, по большому счету, всерьез пока еще ничего и не начинали. При этом мы не отказываемся и от мирных переговоров, но те, кто отказывается, должны знать, что чем дальше, тем сложнее им будет с нами договариваться.
Okay.
Not mincing words there. You want to beat us on the battlefield? Go ahead and try it. Okay, that was one takeaway. The other is, we haven't even started yet. Mm-hmm. You're fighting for the last Ukrainian, which seems like you're carrying that out. And by the way, we're still open for peace, but there's no one meaningfully trying to come to the table for peace. Sergei Lavrov in Washington, D.C. today.
New York City,
the United Nations, specifically talking about, we've been open for peace. We're here. The United States wouldn't even grant visas to the Russian reporters to come and cover the story in America.
Kalalah Malak Yahweh, Wa Yahweh Shai, Ba Hashem, Rachakodash, double honors to the elders of GMS Ruwell, blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing this word in all sincerity. With that being said, Shalom Israel, Barakatah. Today's lesson, Russia claims they have not started yet. That is today's lesson. And Salaki for the background noise. It's been raining hard today. But with that being said, let's go over to the scripture of Isaiah 9 and 5. Isaiah 9 and 5. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. And when ancient historical wars were fought, every battle of the warrior was heard with much confused noise. You heard the confused noise of trumpets, war drums, and battle cries. but you also had the confused noise of the rattling noise of battle formations and of the weapons striking and piercing the shields and armor. In that confused noise, you also heard the screams of the injured and of the dying. But when it comes to this modern day period, the war shall be fought with deadly propelled rockets, and many soldiers as well as civilians will not even have the time to react in that confused noise of much burning and fuel of fire. It will be too late. At their speed they're coming in, the destructive noise of the missiles shall take them by surprise as they strike all their strategic targets, just as you heard in the video clip. War has begun in its first stages, but the tensions shall gradually grow from this point forward. But that greater war to end all wars will only come in full swing when that CH to the IP is fully implemented. Right now, the nations have tensions and hatred, that's the word, hatred for one another. And we are currently experiencing and living in the time of war. You could throw those peace talks right out the window. With that being said, let's go over to Ecclesiastes 3 and 8. Ecclesiastes 3 and 8. A time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. And the opposite of love is hate, and the opposite of war is peace. But we are no longer in the time of peace, but of war, due to these continuous, and that's the key word, continuous, tensions between the nations. There are tensions between Taiwan and China as well. And what the entire world is witnessing with the West, Ukraine, and Russia is the first stages of a greater war to come. Russia and the West will eventually engage in an all-out inevitable war between one another. That's why Vladimir Putin said what he said. Russia claims they have not started yet. The chess pieces are being prepared on the board as we speak. And when it comes to war tactics, the Lord, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, is the best and ultimate strategist due to the fact that he himself is a God of war. That being said, let's go over to Exodus 15 and 3. Exodus 15 and 3. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. The Lord is a man of war. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai is his name. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. As soon as that MOTBCHIP gets fully implemented, the angels of the Lord shall be loosed. They shall be loosened to no longer hold back. All hell will break loose. So when Vladimir Putin says that they have not started yet, you can best believe that the modern day Medes, which are the Russians, will bring it. All that is happening between the West, Ukraine, and Russia is prophecy. Biblical prophecy. That being said, let's go over to Jeremiah 51 and 28. Jeremiah 51 and 28. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes. There you go. Those are the Russians. The captains thereof, and all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his dominion. And all these tensions have stirred up the juggernaut forces of the modern day Medes, which are the Russians, and it cannot be undone. And the scripture of Jeremiah 50 and verse 9 says that the Lord, Yahweh, Yahushai, will cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations. From where? From the north country. All that is currently happening is due to prophecy. And I can't stress that enough. On that day, these other nations, along with these stirred up kings of the Medes, and they are stirred up, and its captains and the rulers thereof shall come up against Babylon the Great, which is America. They will not regard silver or gold, and their only purpose shall be to burn Babylon the Great with fire. Jeremiah 51:29. And the land shall tremble and sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant. And Russia will strengthen, they're going to strengthen their ties with the other nations to come up against Babylon the Great. Once the chess pieces fall into place, modern day Babylon shall become desolate without an inhabitant. It's been prophesied that modern day Babylon shall become a desert, and it shall burn for a long time. Right now, E is fighting against E by the sword of his own brother, according to Haggai 2:22. But the time will come when all nations will take part in this greater war to come. But when it's all said and done, these curses and the cup of the Lord Yahweh Yahushai shall pass unto the nation of Esau Edom, and unto the rest of these other nations that were in league against the nation of Israel. But before this takes place, the nation of Israel, which consists of so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, shall experience great tribulation, the time of Jacob's trouble. But who shall be saved out of it is the hopeful elect of Israel. And that hour of temptation is coming. That is that CH to the IP. And the Holy Scriptures have said to warn them from me, in the scripture of Ezekiel 33:7. And that is exactly what we are doing, warning you of the evil sea-hip to come, and of that greater war that will be with the burning and fuel of fire. You see? That greater war to end all wars shall be with much burning and fuel of fire. And this is in reference to the missiles sweeping throughout the lands and consuming everything in its fiery path of what? Of destruction. This is the fiery second death, according to the scriptures. But it's just as they said in the video. Russia claims they have not started yet. But with that being said, Kal Olam Malak Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rahakwadash, and double honors to the elders of GMS Ruel, blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity. With that being said, Shalom Israel, Barakatah.